today's lesson, ratios and rates, is not something that's brand new to you, but since it's been a long time since you've had it, you're going to relearn it. Let's start as we always do by going over our vocabulary words. Today we have 4 terms. Our first is ratio. A ratio is a fraction that compares 2 quantities. Second, we have equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios are ratios that have the same value. So in other words, they are equivalent fractions. Our third term is rate, and a rate is a ratio of 2 quantities measured in different units. And finally, our fourth term for today, unit rate, which is a rate that has a denominator of 1. And we are going to be exploring these terms and using them as we go over our 3 examples for this lesson. Let's look at our first example. It says homeroom C has 28 students, 10 of whom are girls. Write the ratio of boys to girls. And there are 3 different ways that we can express a ratio. If there are 28 students and 10 of them are girls, it means that there are 18 boys in the class. Now, the most important part here is the wording of the last piece. Take a look. Write the ratio of boys to girls. Boys to girls. Since boys comes first in the sentence, the number of boys has to come first in the ratio. So the first way that we can write a ratio is actually using this word to. We said that there are 18 boys to 10 girls. That's one way. Another way is to replace this word to with a colon. So the ratio of boys to girls is 18, colon, let's see if you can make that a little darker, 10. And then the third way is as a fraction. Remember, after we learned about fractions and we revisited them, we call them rational numbers. Rational ratio, they have the same roots. So 18 would be our numerator, and 10 would be our denominator. Now, this is literally the number of boys to girls. But since these are ratios, we always have to express them in simplest form. Both 18 and 10 have a factor of 2. So our final answer is 9 to 5. Written in all 3 ways. 18 to 10 is 9 to 5. And the fraction 18 over 10 becomes 9 over 5. Now, because we are writing this as a ratio, this is the one of very few times in which we will keep this fraction as an improper fraction. We will not change this to a mixed number because we're talking about boys to girls, 2 separate units. Let's take a look at our second example. Find the unit rate. Unit means UNI means 1. So here we have 2 examples in which we have to convert the ratio that we're given and turn it into what we call a unit rate. If you remember in our definition, unit rate said that the denominator would be 1. Here we find out that there are 36 cookies in 4 packages. So when we talk about our unit rate, we want to know how many cookies there are in only 1 package. So if we're going from 4 to 1, you know that we are dividing by 4, which means we have to divide the numerator by 4 as well. 36 divided by 4 is 9. So our unit rate is 9 cookies for every 1 package. Let's take a look at our second one. We'll see these kinds of examples often. Here we see $15 in 2.5 hours. So we can make the assumption that this might be a wage, that you would make $15 in 2.5 hours. So what we want to do is know how much money you would make in only 1 hour. Well, to go from 2.5 to 1, we are going to be dividing by 2.5. 2.5 divided by 2.5 is 1. And then what you'll do is you'll do your long division, 15 divided by 2.5. And when you'll find that the unit is $6 in 1 hour. We have one more example. This one's a little different. A data center answers 15 calls per minute. How many calls get answered in an hour? Write the equivalent rate. Equivalent rate. The important thing to remember when you're working with ratios is to keep your units the same. Since calls is in our numerator, it stays in our numerator. Now, we're moving from minute to hour. So what we can do is we're going to convert. We want to know how many calls there are in 1 hour. So what we need to do first, because we cannot move within minutes to hours freely, we have to convert them. So when it says write an equivalent rate, here we're going to write 15 calls in 1 minute, which is our original. We want to know how many calls, and we need to have minute be our unit in the denominator. Well, 1 hour has 60 minutes in it. Now that we have our denominator, we can go ahead and write our equivalent rate. To move from 1 to 60, you have to multiply the 1 by 60, which means you need to multiply your numerator by 60. 15 times 60 is 900 calls. So for this data center, which answers 15 calls in 1 minute, they answer 900 calls in 60 minutes.